Hello and welcome to the 112th edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report live. Good evening. The time has just gone. What time are we at? It's 32 minutes past 7. I hope everybody is well wherever you are. I hope you're staying warm as well. Took a little walk down to the co-op just about a half an hour ago and they had the hood up. Felt like winter. The temperature is, what is the temperature outside? Let's check here at Vogan Weather HQ, because it is chilly out there. The temperature is only 3.4 Celsius with a mix of clear skies and some cloud cover as well. A very warm welcome to everybody this evening. We have got our good friend Gavin Partridge in the house this evening. We've got Sing Splint. We've got Lisa. We've got a full team of moderators as well. We've got Paul James as well. Good evening to you, Paul. I've seen quite a few of you earlier on Gavin's terrific live stream as always. Lisa is saying it is cold. Who have we got as well? We've got Soot as well. Good evening to you, Soot. Hope you're having a fine evening tonight as well. We have currently 26 concurrent viewers at the moment. I do believe Lindsay tuned in. She in fact was the first one in the live stream this evening, but I know she is working at the moment, so she cannot hang around. So get back to work, Lindsay. Earn some pennies for the Vogan household while I'm relaxing in the house doing literally nothing all day. It has been nice actually just to chill out, get away from driving, get away from work, and just chill out. So yes, a very good evening to Jamie. We've got Wayne Bingham as well. Good evening to you, Wayne. Hope you're well, my friend, this evening. So yeah, as always, you know the script, you know the drill. I don't even have to say it, but I will anyway. Like, share, and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. It helps myself know that I'm doing a good job. I'm doing something right here on the channel. So hit that like button and let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. We've got Joyce Vogan tuning in from Kirkintilloch. Good evening to you, Mum. I hope you're enjoying your evening thus far and keeping well. It was good to get a wee chat with Mum and Dad earlier on this afternoon as well. We've got Simon James as well, also tuning in to you. Good evening, Simon. Hope you're well, my friend. We've got Swamp Monster also tune in. I'm wearing a t-shirt says Swamp Monster. Yeah, I'm wearing a t-shirt as well, but I do happen to have the heating on this evening. We've got 32 concurrent viewers at the moment, so the numbers are growing. We'll get into it in just a second. 7 Celsius here, says Paul James. David Vogan, hello from a cold and dry Kirkintilloch. I think the sun and cloud has been coming and going across many areas of Scotland as well as the UK today. A chilly old day for sure across the board. We lost that northerly flow of the last few days. Higher pressure built in. I thought the temperature would have dropped below freezing last night here at Vogan Weather HQ in Edmonton, roughly 14 miles to the north of Inverness. But I think cloud and possibly a little bit of breeze held on during the overnight to stop radiational cooling from becoming maximised last night. So David is doing the dishes, says Joyce. I must admit, I have to get into the kitchen as soon as I've done today's live stream to get those dishes done before the good lady gets home from work. Don't want to make it look as if I've been sitting doing literally nothing all afternoon, which would be the case. So I have to admit that. We've also got Richard Gray. Hi from Dartmoor. Richard, what is the conditions like where you are? Is it dark by any chance? Yeah, I think it is dark where you are, Richard. But I hope you're doing well, my friend. Suit says snow gets likely as you get deeper into the winter. Excuse me. Hello from Greece, says Swamp Monster, where we still have temperatures around 22 Celsius. It is slowly but surely cooling down across that part of Europe and the world. But certainly I'm sure Swamp has been sweating somewhat. If don't know, are you on holiday, Swamp, or do you live in Greece? Because if you live in Greece, I'm sure you will be glad of cooler temperatures. But I would be curious to know whether you're on a holiday or you happen to be a resident in Greece. Paul James says, Mark Kinnish, you have never-ending supply of questions. Laugh out loud. That is true. Mark is a man of many questions. Yes, he's some lad, our Mark. Hazel Kitching is tuning in. Good evening to you, Hazel. I hope you're having a good evening as well, and enjoying your Sunday evening so far. So let me see, have I forgotten anybody? I prefer cold, so love this stuff. Yeah, certainly do enjoy the cold weather, I must admit. Nice, crisp, wintry evenings. We've also got Elof Haring. Hope that is the right pronunciation. I'm probably butchering that one, but a good evening to you, Elof, from Denmark. So, yes, what is the weather conditions where you are, my friend? We've got 41 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Mark says, what's wrong with asking questions? Paul, my manager at work, says nothing wrong in it. And I'm sure Paul isn't necessarily saying there's anything wrong with that, Mark. It is good to ask questions, my friend. And I know Paul doesn't mean it in any negative sense. But let me see here if I've forgotten anybody. Let me see here. So let me answer a question here. Mark says, hi Mark, do you think whatever winter brings, we will get a cold winter again in the future? They come round in cycles. I would certainly imagine, Mark, that we will get winter again. I don't think global warming has taken over that much that we're never going to see cold weather again, my friend. But certainly we obviously in recent years have had a mixture of mild versus cold. We've had a lack of snow in the last few years, I must admit, especially the further south you go. Quite fortunate up here in the north of the UK that you typically get snow even in mild winter conditions and mild overall winters. So we're quite fortunate, we're quite blessed if you like snow and cold to even get snowy conditions even in the mildest of winters. It'll be interesting to see what happens actually as we progress through the next few weeks, because obviously we're getting very close to winter season, continuing to build the ideas. I will promise, I haven't actually released the October winter update, but I promise in the coming days I will have that released. Just been a little bit swamped in recent times due to the hurricanes impacting parts of the United States. We've had lots of weather going on around the planet in recent days and in the last wee while. So it's been quite busy trying to keep up with everything. I did my first late night on Wednesday live stream. It was terrific, actually. I've seen over 40 people on. I went live between 11:30 p.m. and around 12:30 a.m. And what an audience it was. Obviously, we were talking about the landfall of Hurricane Milton, so it was not necessarily good circumstances to go live, but nonetheless, it was terrific to see many people, including Sing Splint and a few others that I don't normally see, popped up on late Wednesday night to tune in to me as usual, waffling on. Adam Blunson says, hi Mark, what do you think about this winter, cold or mild? Adam, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think I'm going for a front-loaded type winter. What is interesting is the fact that the trend in last few months anyway has been on the chilly side, and surprisingly so, I must admit. June, July, September has been below average for the UK. August was slightly warmer than average, especially across southern areas, not so across the north of the UK, I must admit. And certainly this month it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, because we are trending milder this upcoming work week. We're going to go back into the mid-teens, even across northern areas of the British Isles. But what will be interesting is we're going to see the pattern changing. Lower pressure to the west, higher pressure to the east. We're going to see south to southwesterly winds, and that is going to remove this chill that we've got in place at the moment over the British Isles and bring some nice mild conditions. It is sometimes nice to get milder conditions for a period of time, because it is a long old winter. Whether it's mild or cold, it can be a long drag over the next few months here. From a mental health point of view, a lot of people suffer from SAD or SAD, which is obviously the seasonal affective disorder. I don't necessarily think I suffer from SAD, but when you're working night shift at this time of the year, there is a lot of darkness. You don't see much in the way of daylight. You go to bed in the dark, you're waking up, and if you're lucky, you're going to see daylight for a couple of hours at the very best, and then it will turn dark once again. You work through the darkness, you sleep during the daytime, and yeah, it can be tough for many people from a mental health point of view. So we're mindful of that. We're mindful of the older folks as well, people who don't have particularly good health. Obviously, the government have taken away the allowance for the heating. Don't want to get into politics, but certainly this is going to be a long old winter for a lot of people. People are struggling. We're also mindful that Lee Stevens, I believe he's in hospital. I think his mum is on end-of-life care in hospital. So a tough time for Lee and his family. We're obviously thinking about him at this moment in time. So our thoughts and prayers with Lee and the family at the moment here. So I'll rattle on through the live stream, the live chat, should I say, for another little while. And then we'll get into some of the stuff that's been going on over the last wee while here. Mark says, I'll make you laugh, Paul. Went to the dentist years ago, and even while dentist was working on my teeth, I wouldn't shut up. Ha ha ha. The dentist said I'll have to find a gag for him. You're some lad, Mark. Yeah, I must say. Let me just see here who else we've got. I think Paul James says snow is a luxury for him. Well, you're down in Hampshire, Paul. So certainly in recent times anyway, snow has definitely been a luxury, especially across the far south of the British Isles. Hazel says, hope we don't get snow this winter. I hate it. And lucky old me has to drive up and down the A9 every weeknight. It's going to be interesting as we start to get. I did see my first snowflakes actually the other night coming in. Strong gusty wind, 1 degree Celsius on the dashboard, and it certainly did feel distinctly wintry. So a massive thank you, as I've already said, to our moderators this evening. We've got a full house pretty much. Lindsay is working. And I know she checked in a little while earlier, but we've got a massive thanks to Sing Splint, Paul James, and Lisa Pattenden as well. A massive thank you for moderating tonight's stream. We've got John saying, hi, you asked 7 days ago, anyone been in a storm? As an engineer sailing Argentina to Malmo, that would be quite an experience. Hit storm 10, Bay Biscay, hove to 3 days, hit a freak wave, flooded 1 and 2 hatch in Malmo, minus 24, sugar, ice cube. Certainly would be some experience that, John, crossing the high seas. I certainly would somewhat be interested in doing that. I must admit, I would love to take a cruise ship actually from Southampton to New York, maybe one day if I can save the pennies, I suppose. So, we've still got 38 concurrent viewers at the moment. Let's get into it now, I suppose. We've got Katrine also tuning in. A very good evening to you, Katrine. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday evening. So we're obviously on the 13th of October. It has been distinctly chilly in the air over recent days. We're going to moderate. We're going to see temperatures rising. The Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation is going positive once again, thanks to the Man-Julian Oscillation going towards the maritime continent here. So, like clockwork, that MJO back through the Indian Ocean, moving into the Indonesia region, that enhanced area of convection, then changes the shape of the jet stream, or areas of high and low pressure, then starts to kind of reorient the upper level pattern, and we are seeing the change taking place over the North Atlantic and over western areas of Europe. Good evening to you, Bernard Richmond. Thanks for tuning in this evening to the live stream. So let's get to it. First and foremost, the tropics is looking rather somewhat quieter now, which is good news. This is the only area of concern seen by NHC over the next 24, 48 hours or so, and there's a 10% chance of development here over that time period, which is good. We've got sinking motion widespread across the Atlantic moving in, so therefore we should start to see conditions becoming more and more less favourable. Does that make sense? More and more less favourable? Don't think so. Probably not. Anyway, 40% chance over the next 7 days of developing here within the Atlantic basin. And this is that area of rising versus sinking. So that MJO is in the Indian Ocean at the moment. It is going to head into the Indonesia region, and therefore the change in the pattern will reflect a milder situation. So you can see here off this model here, there's that MJO going into the mild phases of 4 and 5. Keep hitting the wrong button here. Just bear with me a second here, everybody. Sorry about this. So, yeah, I'm going to try and sway away from the tech stuff. It was quite heavy going last Sunday. So I'm going to try and move away a little bit from some of the kind of technical stuff because it's not for everybody. I get that. But essentially, at the moment, we've got this green line representing the forecast seen by the GFS ensemble. You can see this green line, a little bit hard to see. I do appreciate that. Let's see if we can get it bigger and you can see it a little bit more up close. So there's that phase 4 and 5 MJO rotating into the maritime continent. Phases 4 and 5 tends to promote milder conditions. This is what we've seen over the last couple of days. Quite cold compared to average here, seen off the CDAS data. But if we go to this chart here, what is going to take place is this is the upper air pattern across Europe over the next 7 days, across the planet. In fact, we've got a deepening trough over the North Pacific region over North America, but then consequently we're going to start to see the negative low pressure now starting to replace the high pressure over the North Atlantic, and that is your classic phase 4-5. If we play through the next few days here, you notice here that we're starting to see the negative pulling to the west out over the open Atlantic. We're replacing that high with low pressure. Therefore, we're starting to see higher pressure to the south and southeast of the UK. Southwesterly winds means milder conditions. Let's look at Europe specifically. So you could get this orientation of trough to the northwest, high to the southeast. We've got southwesterly winds, and let's look at the temperature anomalies for the same period. So there you go. This is the upcoming day 3 through 10, Tuesday the 15th through Tuesday the 22nd. Warmer than average temperatures as a response to that. But I want to make mention of the fact that, by the way, I meant to say this for a good wee while now, actually. We've got Super Josh 24 tuning in as well. Very good evening to you, Super Josh 24. Hope you're having a good evening, and thank you for watching tonight's live stream. So this is the period coming up, but that MJO is expected to continue rotating into the phases that may be favourable for cold. So I'm swaying more and more towards a colder November and the return of the negative Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation. So that 4 and 5 MJO means that the AO and the NAO is going back weekly positive. So this is the Arctic Oscillation. What is the Arctic Oscillation? When it's positive, we've got the cold and lower pressure over the Arctic region. Higher pressure further south means you typically have milder conditions over the continents, over the middle altitude pattern. So you can see this here, this big swing. Look at this here, from deep negative, and we're going up to strong positive. That is textbook phase 4-5 of the MJO. What about the North Atlantic Oscillation? It too, very similar, coincides very nicely with the Arctic Oscillation. Look at this. So it's going from deeply negative, record negative, by the way. It was record negative during the month of September into the early portions of October. But we knew, I said way back over a week ago, that with the MJO moving back through the Indian Ocean, so that's that enhanced convection over the Indian Ocean, means that we see that ripple effect both north and downstream over the Atlantic, over America, over the Atlantic, and over Europe here. So it's going into positive territory, as you can see here. And as a response, like clockwork, we go from the below average, this is the last 7 days, here. So this is the last 7 days. Somewhat colder than average. Look at the month to date. And you can see here, so this is October so far. And what will be interesting to see is, do we see this month flip from colder than average to warmer than average? That will be the big question as we move through the second half of October. So let's play through this loop of this is the ECM weeklies, by the way, should have said that. You can see here the warm signal holds on out to the 24th of October. And then we start to see hints of something cooler, not necessarily cold, but cooler as we move towards the end of October. And then what about into the month of November? This is the month of November seen by the weeklies. Notice that cool signal showing up UK, Ireland, down into the south and southwest of the continent here. So that's going to be interesting to see going forward here. I wanted to show you this video here. Let's go to Milton. So Hurricane Milton reached Category 5 status not once but twice. We've seen 2, even 3, possibly even 4 eye wall replacement cycles, which is when the eye contracts. Now you get eye wall replacement cycles in very powerful hurricanes, not your weak Category 1, Category 2. It's usually when you've got optimum conditions both underneath within the ocean. You've got water temperatures 28, 29, 30 Celsius or warmer, and especially deep below the surface, you've got that optimum fuel to then drive a powerhouse hurricane. And when you've got optimum conditions within the atmosphere, in other words, moisture and a lack of shear, wind shear. Wind shear is, varying wind speed and direction with height. Hurricanes don't like wind shear. But when you've got a perfect environment for a hurricane to reach its maximum potential intensity, its theoretical strongest it can possibly get from a physical point of view, you tend to find eye wall replacement cycles take place. So basically you've got the eye. Let me see here real quick. I want to show you this here. This is the up close of Hurricane Milton. Look at this here. This is an up close view. And you can see these mesovortices, these little vortexes that spin around the eye, the center of the hurricane. That is when you've got a super powerful system. Look at these little vortices within the eye itself. Now, what an eye wall replacement cycle is when you have the eye contract like a skater pulling its arms in. As they pull their arms in, they spin faster, and they get to the point where the eye becomes a pinhole. And this is evident in really powerful hurricanes. We've seen it with Wilma, October 2005. The eye became so small, it was only a couple of miles in diameter. And then what happens is you start to see a fresh band, a new eye wall developing outside the eye itself. What happens is the existing eye then closes in and disappears. And then what happens is the system kind of weakens briefly. And then that outer eye wall then becomes the new eye wall. The eye then clears out. You see clear skies. And the reason why you see clear skies in the eye of a hurricane is because there is descending air through the eye itself. So the air at the top of the system is then going down into the eye. That is how the eye becomes warm. And then you've got cloud tops reaching the very top of the troposphere, the very ceiling of the atmosphere where our weather exists. It's the separation, the boundary layer between the troposphere and the stratosphere. What happens is at the very top of the storm, you've got this thick concentric donut shape of convection. And what is that? Those cloud tops in Milton at its peak reached minus 100 degrees Celsius. Minus 100 degrees Celsius on the top of the central dense overcast. And you've got this warm inner core, this eye, and then the eye closes up, it disappears, and then a new eye forms. But what happens is, during that process where the eye wall becomes bigger, it then creates a larger storm itself. And these eye wall replacement cycles started to grow the wind field within Hurricane Milton. And the system went from 30 miles out from the center, hurricane force winds, very powerful, but didn't really it wasn't very far away from the centre where you didn't actually have particularly bad weather and bad winds, etc. But once this eye wall becomes larger, then the wind field within the system grows in width. And every eye wall replacement cycle seen the system grow bigger and bigger. So quite fast in meteorology. It really is amazing when you see nature, unfortunately, do its worst. Lisa says that she was in Wilma during that storm. I take it you lived in Southwest Florida, Lisa, or somewhere within Florida when that happened. Either that or you lived in Mexico, and I don't think you lived in Mexico from what I understand. So yeah, mind-boggling stuff. It really is. That is what drives my passion for weather. And I always said at the 87 storm, I lived as a 4-year-old in central London with my mum and dad and my brother Colin. And we lived in the Salvation Army Training College in Camberwell, central London. And we were in the Great Storm of 87. And I've always said that that is the reason I fell in love with weather and the passion that I've got for weather. Been through a couple of hard times in life, and weather has been what's got me through those hard times. It really is an amazing subject, and mind-boggling what nature can do. This is an interesting tweet here by Weather Watch. This is a company that's based in New Zealand, but some of the statistics that came out of Milton was particularly notable. Milton rapidly strengthened from a Category 1, so 75 mile an hour hurricane force winds, to a major Cat 5 in 10 hours. So talk about rapid intensification. Milton has the second highest pressure drop in 24 hours. The pressure dropped by 84 millibars in 24 hours. And the deeper the millibars, the lower the pressure, the stronger the system tends to be. Milton was also the second biggest increase in winds in 24 hours as well, going 153 kilometres stronger from Cat 1 to Cat 5 in that short space of time. So I was stationed in Jacksonville because Lisa was in the RAF, not RAF, the US Air Force. I'll get there. Back, I believe, at that time. So very interesting stuff indeed. I'm going to try, obviously I've got my Weather Talk series, which I haven't had any more interviews since Aidan McGivern of the Met Office is back. I think it was in April time. But I wouldn't mind having a chat with one of the hurricane hunters. It would be quite interesting to get a chat with them. And speaking of hurricane hunters, I want to show you this amazing capture. This is from the NOAA Hurricane Hunters Facebook page. Let's have a look at this here. So this is them flying through the storm. I was saying this to my mum this afternoon on a video call on Facebook, that these guys fly through and crisscrossed a cross-section of the storm. These guys really are second to none, by the way. They risk their lives to save lives by flying both in the low levels, the mid levels, and the upper levels of the storm. What they do is, if anybody wondered what actually the hurricane hunters do, it's not for fun or to make themselves feel big about themselves or anything. These guys are flying in 12-hour missions. They take off from parts of Florida, sometimes I believe Biloxi, Mississippi, and other places. They fly through the storm, and they drop these drop zones out of the aircraft. It goes through the storm, and it's reading temperature, humidity. It's taking a sample essentially of the atmosphere from a vertical point of view, and then that information in real time gets then sent to the National Hurricane Center in Miami, and then they take the information, and by taking that information, they're able to feed it into the computer models and create more accurate forecasts, projections forward. So these systems, another thing that I was talking about, the eye wall replacement cycles, they tend to create wobbles in the actual movement, the track of the hurricane. And each eye wall replacement cycle quite often means that the center of the storm almost kind of can reform in a slightly different position from a geographical point of view, longitude and and longitude and the latitude. Is that right? But anyway, the center of the storm can actually change course due to these eye wall replacement cycles. And what happens is that little change in position can actually be critical, because it can actually change the course of its track, and therefore what may have been projected for a landfall, say 36 hours out somewhere around the Tampa Bay area, that little wobble, that little change in position of the center can then change the ultimate landfall point on land. So essentially it could go 50 miles to the north, 50 miles to the south, depending on that little change in position. So all these little things matter when it comes to the forecast, the computer models. The computer models are always chopping and changing depending on what the storm's doing. And these guys fly through. You've got a lot of information read by satellite, but at the same time, satellite only gives you so much information. It's actually when these guys fly through, pick up the flight level winds. There was flight level winds, by the way, in Milton over 215 miles per hour. They were recording those kind of winds within the system. And that then creates this condition on board. So I'm going to play this video. And this is the mission when the storm was really bad. Watch this here. Watch the movement. I know my dad would love that. He loves flying. He loves turbulence and all that kind of stuff. I'm being sarcastic because he's not particularly great at flying it. So look at the stuff getting thrown around. Look at the amount of stuff, gear that's been thrown around during the turbulence. You've seen the violent shaking. Good evening to Richard as well. Thanks for tuning in, Richard. Yeah, these are specially equipped aircraft that can deal with these kind of conditions. Think about it in the sense that you've got friends, family, loved ones that are in harm's way of a hurricane. And the best way for me to describe it to people that maybe don't understand why these folks are doing this is essentially it's in real time taking major information from the storm itself. It's getting relayed, like I say, back to the National Hurricane Center in Miami. That then gets fed into the computer models, and you have a better chance at the most accurate possible forecast for officials, government officials, planning, evacuation. All this stuff is very, very necessary. Yeah, it costs a lot of money, but at the same time, this can be life-saving tasks that the government are undergoing. But certainly, it must be. I've often wondered how these guys can do this, because they're flying for 12 hours at a time, sometimes hour after hour, bouncing around. Lindsay and I flew through the intertropical convergence zone, the tropics, when we flew down to Brazil and back. There was a little bit of bouncing around for a couple of hours or so, but that's nothing compared to what these guys experience. So yeah, I wanted to share that video because I think it's important to see that, not just from a kind of sense of an entertainment. It's actually to show you really what goes on, because we often hear aircraft, hurricane hunters flying into the storms, and you don't necessarily fully appreciate what they're actually going through until you see footage like that. So yeah, interesting stuff, fascinating, and let's just hope that this hurricane season can be quickly coming to an end. Unfortunately, the MJO looks as if it may return to the Atlantic later in October into the month of November. Remember, officially, the Atlantic hurricane season doesn't end until the 30th of November. Now, the biggest problem is once you get the atmosphere becoming a little bit more conducive, it's becoming less favourable at the moment for the production of tropical cyclones. But this is the concern. This is sea surface temperatures of over 30 degrees Celsius. So if you look at this here, this is a tweet here by Ben Knoll, and the yellowy orangey colours on this map represents water temperatures of 30 Celsius or higher. And you see here that we've got pretty much all of the Caribbean Sea in that 30 Celsius water temperature range. And even into the month of November, even December, when the atmosphere is right, you can get development of tropical cyclones. So this season, while it's quieting down at the moment, it might not be done just yet. Check out the tropical outlook that I did yesterday, explaining how we may not be completely done with this season just yet here. So I think, especially folks in the United States, folks that are maybe in the Caribbean islands, for example, they may experience perhaps another 1, 2, 3 tropical cyclones before everything is done for another year. So yeah, that's that. Let's continue to crack on then. So this is off Volcanic on Twitter. Lots of flooding that's going on around the planet at the moment here. In fact, let's have a quick look at the current temperature anomalies around the planet. After all, it is a global weather and climate report. Let's look at the month to date. This is looking at the globe. And once again, a lot of warmth around the planet, especially across North America, up into the Canadian Arctic. Greenland, for example, warmer than average. The reasons why Greenland is so warm compared to average, it's not warm, it's compared to average, warmer than average, if that makes sense. But we've got that strong negative North Atlantic oscillation at the moment. So we've got this anomalous high pressure over Greenland, hence why we've got warmer than average temperatures. Look at North America, warmer than average. Most of South America, we've seen some crazy warmth across parts of Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil in recent weeks down here. Australia looking warmer than average. Eastern China below average here. If you notice, Japan, that summer over the last few months, it just seems to be month after month, Japan's recording record-breaking temperatures. We've got that exceptional warm sea surface temperature anomalies in the Northwest Pacific. That is definitely having a warming effect on the islands of Japan. Looking into Asia, we've got a mix of warm and cold. Eastern portions of Europe still warmer than average. Most of Europe actually has cooled down considerably this month compared to the summer just gone. Slightly below average yet again across equatorial Africa due to cloud and thunderstorm activity, rainfall. Look at South America, or South Africa, should I say. It's quite an area of below average. Obviously, South Africa itself is actually above average here. You've got a mix of warmer and colder compared to average down in Antarctica. But this is the month of October so far through essentially the first 2 weeks. We're closing in on 2 weeks into the month of October. And you can see the warm and cold anomalies. This is another interesting one, by the way. This is off coolweather.com, so coolwx.com. This is looking at the records, both cold and warm, for the last 24 hours. And you can see the areas there. This is a global view. And yeah, we've had a few cold records fall for date records, by the way, at that, across parts of the UK in recent days. Due to this Arctic air coming south here. But we've got a few cold records to speak about. This is in Kazakhstan. We had the temperature at a near daily record low at Irkutsk, I think it is, in Kazakhstan, temperature -4. We've also had a record in Omsk in Russia, near daily record of -7. We've got a temperature here in parts of Kazakhstan, -7. For a near date record We've also had a record cold temperature in Sri Lanka, interesting enough. Imagine having a near record low temperature and that record being 24 degrees Celsius. Pretty crazy stuff here. A record Yola in Nigeria, a daily record of 31 Celsius. Look at all these records across parts of South America. Central and northern portions of South America seeing some very warm temperatures indeed. Venezuela, for example, 37 degrees Celsius. Moving up to parts of Mexico, this is breaking a monthly record high of 30 Celsius at this one particular location. Then parts of the southern plains, southern tier United States, we're seeing some records fall. We've got even Feckler in Virginia seeing a near daily record, 29 Celsius or 84.4 Celsius. Even all the way up into Eureka in Northern Territories of Canada. This is the way up north of the Arctic Circle. We've seen a temperature, a near daily record low maximum of -3 Celsius. So plenty of record warmth, especially across the Americas at the moment, if you notice. Looking at the United States and up close, you've got those records extending all the way up into the northeast. Nothing in Europe over the last 24 hours, if you notice here. Quite interesting. So anyway, let's crack on here. Let's have a look at volcanic on Twitter. This was in Gujarat region of India in the last few days. Obviously, that MJO now rotating back into this region of the world, so you're enhancing thunderstorms as a result of that. Looks as if Hazel is checking out. Good. Have a good evening, Hazel, and hope you have a good week ahead, Hazel. So take care of yourself. We've got Ethan Harris. Mark, do we have a developing cold PDO? We do have a developing cold PDO, Ethan. It certainly looks that way. We've seen the water temperatures cooling down in this part of the North Pacific in recent times. So quite interesting, actually. This was also a scene here in parts of India. Look at this here. So, yeah, officially the monsoon season, which ended, I think, 7% above average, we're still seeing heavy rainfall. This was in India as well. Look at this tornado developing over India. Look at the kind of rope-like structure of this tornado. Quite incredible footage, actually, coming out of this part of India. So, with that enhanced convection in this part of the world, you get enhancement of rainfall, and that has certainly been the case. Look at this here. This is in Sena village in Indonesia. We've also seen some epic flooding in parts of Thailand in recent days as well, and I've actually forgotten to share that in the last wee while. So this is the scene in the, I think, Sumatra, I could be wrong, part of Indonesia. And obviously these parts of the world are very susceptible to heavy rains, flooding, etc., etc. This is in Dubai. This was back in April. There's a volcanic eruption in Kagoshima area of Japan. Let me just see here real quick if there's anything else of interest in the last wee while. We've seen more flooding in parts of the Middle East also. So where's this here? This was in Malaysia actually. So again, more heavy flooding. So it's always interesting to take a little global tour, and this is obviously the whole point of the Global Weather Report, which has been going now for nearly 2.5 years. But always interesting to see. This was, by the way, from Andalusia in Spain. So we obviously had ex-Hurricane Kirk cross just to the northwest of Spain and Portugal. Very strong winds, heavy rainfall, flooding as a result of that heavy rain. We've also seen another system moving across southern Portugal and Spain through the course of this weekend, also bringing some flooding to the southern portions of... this is here, look at this here, this is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Check this out. So clearly a severe thunderstorm rolling through the major metropolitan area of Sao Paulo in Brazil. This was captured. This was a tweet that was sent out 20 hours ago. This was the scene here at Port Alegre in Portugal. Again, I'm assuming this is a byproduct of the passage of ex-Hurricane Kirk. Again, major flooding to speak about. Now, like I said, there's two systems. We had Kirk that moved across the north of Iberia. We also had a system that moved across the south of the Iberian Peninsula, causing flooding. So I don't know, Port Alegre, I don't know if that's in the south or the north of the country or not. I'm not entirely sure. Windstorm here in Colombia, so the north of South America. Pretty scary stuff, actually, I must admit. Can you imagine walking around there and all of a sudden you've got things flying about? That's how people get injured or worse. Let me see here if there's anything else to show you. Let me know in the live chat as well. Did anybody who's seen the Northern Lights in recent nights? I know Lisa has been lucky enough. There's been a lot of cloud cover, especially across northern areas, but I know this was one of the most expansive viewings of the Northern Lights in many, many years. I think it was seen in parts of the Southern Hemisphere, across many areas of the Northern Hemisphere. It was seen as far south as Florida, actually. I've seen some Facebook posts of the Northern Lights being viewed in Florida, London, and southern portions of England as well. So pretty amazing sightings of the Northern Lights. Let me know, did you happen to see the aurora in recent days? Look at this here view of the Northern Lights seen in Iceland back a few nights ago. So pretty crazy stuff. I seen a green glow, kind of reddy green glow, but I didn't get a proper view of the aurora in recent nights, unfortunately, due to a lot of cloud cover, which was a wee bit disappointing. But nonetheless, some amazing photographs and images that were seen coming out of many areas of the world from the Northern Lights viewings. Look at this eruption. That was back in 2011. Let me see here. This is Fonterra in Spain. This is also Fonterra in Spain. Let me see. Is there anything else? Some amazing. Another thing that Hurricane Milton will be very remembered for a very long time is the amount of tornadoes it produced. This is a scene here from the International Space Station of Hurricane Milton. So look at this view here. Pretty crazy stuff. That is Milton. Looks as if it was undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle. Look at how you can't really see the eye. You can see the core, but the eye is becoming filled in. So it must have been undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle at the time. So that was that. This was the scene in Marseille back on the 8th of October due to the flood and rainfall there. This is amazing here, by the way. This was a capture. Clearly the person cacked it. And you probably would, though, if you're standing on your balcony all of a sudden this happens. This was actually due to an outer rain band associated with Hurricane Milton. Obviously, Milton kind of skirted the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and that was what happened. This was the scene in Croatia. I believe there was over 140 millimeters of rain fell in a particular cell over Croatia in 1 hour. So that was pretty amazing, actually. 1 hour of rainfall. This was Bosnia-Herzegovina as well. I think due to the same weather complex. So Singh says, yeah, they've seen it for the first time ever the other day. It was incredible. It certainly was, Singh. I must admit, it certainly was amazing. Been fortunate a couple of times to see it from an aircraft. This was the scene in southern Taiwan due to typhoon. It and the Philippines are essentially probably the most vulnerable places in the world for tropical cyclones. You can actually get over a dozen kind of passing or direct impacts from a tropical cyclone in a particular season. Taiwan and the Philippines very, very susceptible to flooding because of its geography. We've got very high mountains in Taiwan as well, so 1,500 millimeters of rainfall in a couple of days is not that unusual actually in this part of the world. There's that flooding in parts of the Chiang Mai region of Thailand. We've seen some epic flooding in this part of Thailand in the last week or two as well. So let me just see here real quick. This was Oman, by the way. Quite a lot of thunderstorms over the Middle East in recent months as well. Obviously in the middle of the desert, and then heavy rainfall obviously it's not able to get absorbed into the ground the same way that it would be in, like, say, for example, here. This was the scene in Mount Holly in North Carolina in the passage of Helene. Obviously, Helene, one of the most deadly hurricanes to hit the United States since Katrina. Billions and billions of dollars worth of damage. Helene, yeah. Very, very, very sad scenes out of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia in recent times. So, yeah, that's that. Do we have anything else to talk about? Or sure, let's have a look and see. Then we'll round up because we're closing in on 1 hour. This is my own Twitter page. Let me just see if there's anything of interest. Yeah, the maximum temperature today is 7.9. This was the coldest day here at the house since the 6th of April. Still to hit the 0 Celsius mark. The last time that we hit the freezing mark here at the house was the 30th of April. It's got close a few times, but it's coming. This is a post here by Back Perch Weather, by the way. Tropical tweet person. They quite often discuss the tropics. Back 45 years ago yesterday, we had Typhoon Tip. That was the most powerful tropical entity. Well, typhoon obviously in the West Pacific. But look at this here. So this was 45 years ago yesterday. Typhoon Tip, Super Typhoon Tip. Its width was 1,380 miles wide. It had maximum sustained winds of 190 miles per hour and an earth-shattering minimum pressure of 870 millibars, which is the lowest of any tropical cyclone ever recorded. Became the largest and most intense tropical cyclone in world history, spanning 520 miles. It was west-northwest of the island of Guam, and I know there was a famous image of a boat with birds sitting on the cables and the actual structure of the boat. The boat was actually seen in the eye of Super Typhoon Tip, and that image always stands out. It's quite an historic and captivating image of the birds sitting in the eye of Super Typhoon Tip, the tropical equivalent of a megalodon, I think. This inconceivably monstrous Pacific system. So that's the image of Super Typhoon Tip back 45 years ago yesterday. Quite amazing stuff. Wanted to share that with you as well. So let me see if I've got anything else to share with you before we close off for the evening. Do check out Gavin Partridge's. He just released his 7th winter update. Amazing stuff. So check out Gavin Partridge on YouTube and watch his latest winter update. This was the scene here by Braemar and Ballater and Deeside Weather. This was the scene at Loch Nagar, the Munro up in Deeside. yesterday, I believe, or today. Look at this here. Beautiful, fresh winter scene at Loch Nagar. The one and only time I did that Munro, it was blowing an absolute hoolie, to say the least. Interesting tweet here by Harry Hardrada here. Northern Isles have certainly had a few very cold October days. Balta Sound #2 has broken daily low maximum records for the last 3 days consecutively. Lerwick broke another daily record yesterday, and as did Fir Isle and Kirkwall. These sites are relatively important to monitor as they have decent periods of record and quite intriguing locations for the Norwegian current. So some record daily record low maximum temperatures recorded in Shetland in recent days. Also, another interesting tweet here. We're closing in on the first -30s of the season in parts of Russia. This was a temperature recorded a few days ago, -28.1 Celsius. The lowest temperature of the season in the Northern Hemisphere, out with Greenland. Quite remarkable for the time of the year, but not a record. And we're starting to expand that snow cover across Siberia. As you expand that snow cover, we're therefore going to start to see the temperatures cooling over the Northern Hemisphere. So obviously the cold is likely to return for the month of November. Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation is likely to go back negative once again as the MJO rotates into more favourable phases. So this is the snow cover from a couple of days ago here. So quite low amounts of snow over the north of North America, but you can start to see it expanding over Russia, as can be seen here. And this graphic here, this is off the GFS model, indicating snow depth by the time we reach Sunday the 27th of October here. So we're starting to expand the snow seen by the GFS over North America, over the north of Eurasia. Even parts of Scandinavia starting to pick up on a decent snow cover towards the end of October. Also, even the northern UK may get in on some snow as we progress towards the end of the month. This was the scene here captured by a passenger. This guy is Captain Dave. He's a captain for British Airways, does a lot of long haul flying. And this was a capture by a passenger. He was in the cockpit. But he says it was one of the first times he's seen no snow in the top of, 13,500 foot Mount Fuji. This is just outside Tokyo, by the way, if you don't know. And this was the first time he's seen no snow on the top of Mount Fuji in Japan. Now, incidentally, they've had months and months of record-breaking heat, so it's obviously taken its toll even in the upper levels. That was a capture by myself, actually, back last November when Lindsay and I went to Japan, and this was Mount Fuji. So a decent amount of snow cover on Fuji last November, but nonetheless there is no snow at the moment up here. And we are going to see warmer temperatures this upcoming week. Like I said, low pressure moving to the west, higher pressure to the east, southerly winds. We're going to see temperatures back into the mid-teens quite widely across the UK. So, is this the end of the live stream? By the way, this was a capture here from Aaron Rigsby. Not just storm surge flooding, but look at this here. Look at the sand that basically swept through this beach house in Florida a few days ago. So, more devastating scenes due to Milton. This is a capture during, this was I think the Fort Myers area. This neighborhood here got ravaged by a major tornado. EF4 or EF3 tornado strength, but very unusual to see these strength of tornadoes spun up due to the circulation of a tropical cyclone. But look at this dumpster being dumped on top of a house. Look at the state of these houses here after an EF2, EF3 tornado swept through this neighborhood. I think it was Palm Beach Gardens to be exact. That was again due to Hurricane Milton. This was a tweet here. A few days ago, we've seen some record low maximums in Altnahara, Aviemore. So some fairly cold air across parts of the UK in recent days. So anyway, let's round up. I think I've spoken long enough. People are wanting to enjoy the rest of what's left of their Sunday evening. A massive, massive, massive thank you to everybody yet again for tuning in to listen to me talking about weather for the last hour. So I'm really, really greatly appreciate everybody's kind support. Please hit that like button before you leave today. It would do myself a massive favour. It spreads the content through YouTube and its reach. But a massive thank you to everybody. Thank you to Paul James, Lisa, and also Sing Splint for moderating today's stream. It's been greatly appreciated as always. And a thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thanks for interacting as well on the live chat. We will be back on Sunday night next week with another live stream. But thank you to Bernard Richmond, Paul James, Lisa, like I've already said. We've got Katrine. There is Mark Kinnish. Thank you very much, Mark, for tuning in this evening. As always, thanks to my mum, Joyce Vogan, and David Vogan for tuning in from Kirkintilloch. We've got Suit as well. Thank you, Suit, for tuning in. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening. Thanks to Richard. Thanks to Lorraine as well for tuning in. Have I forgotten anybody else? Hope you've enjoyed today's content. Hope it's been a bit of an insight into what's been happening in other parts of the world in the last week or so. Lots of extreme weather taking place around the world these days. Thanks to Ethan as well for tuning in. And yeah, that is the task here. Not only forecasting the weather, but also discussing things that have taken place around the world as well. Thanks to Krajcek, probably butchering that name, but thank you very much anyway for tuning in, my friend, and have a wonderful Sunday evening. Also, have a wonderful evening, have a great week ahead, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow with the European Outlook. We're going to discuss the weather coming up over the next few days. We're going to talk about winter. We're going to be talking about the November outlook as well. Those ideas are starting to get built up already. Thanks to Gavin Partridge also for tuning in a little bit earlier. Stephen Lee as well. Thank you very much for tuning in, Stephen. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next time with more weather content. Have a wonderful Sunday evening, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.